First game down in the Bears' temporary new home, and they marked it with a fantastic win against a tough Workington side. We've got all the news, reaction and analysis from a terrific day at Broadstreet. This is the world's greatest podcast about the Coventry Bears. This is Bears Necessities. Yes, welcome to Bears Necessities, your favourite podcast all about the Coventry Bears. We live at covbearspodcast.com. We're at covbearspodcast on Twitter. You can find us in all the usual spots where you get podcasts, and we're sponsored by York's Tim. I'm one of your hosts, Dave Musson. Joining me, as always, my co-host, Craig Cathcart. Craig, I mean, we're always optimistic going into these games, and we were optimistic when we saw the brilliant condition of the pitch and the size of the pitch here. We thought this could suit the Bears' running game, but Bears 41, Workington 30.
Absolutely brilliant. I'm smiling from ear to ear. We had a chat before the game. I said the pitch looked phenomenal. It really looked like it would suit the Bears today. We know the Bears on the edges are quick. They've got players that can run it in from anywhere, and that proved to be the case today. I mean, the number of tries that were run in from 40, 50 yards or more was just brilliant. Just an all-round team performance. Defensively, the Bears were phenomenal. This was a big Workington team. I mean, before the game, we saw them warming up, and we were quite surprised at actually how big they were.
Well, Fui was only about the fifth largest, wasn't he?
Yeah, this is a big team, big Workington team, and they did work the Bears hard up the middle, but honestly, defensively, I've not seen the Bears play like that all season. Really smashed them every time they got the ball, slowed them down, pushed up quickly, good line speed. It was just phenomenal. Great all-round performance and some absolutely scintillating rugby. Some amazing tries, real pace shown. I'm just absolutely delighted.
Same here. So coming up on the show, we'll take you through the story of a fantastic game. We'll hear from Bears head coach Tom Tsang, and we'll generally just bask in the glory of a quite amazing win. So we should probably start with the story of the game. So Workington actually scored first, as it happened, but in the end it didn't really mean much. The Bears hit back very quickly. They scored 2 tries in 3 minutes. First, Jacob Jones, after a fantastic break and dummy from Nick Newman, he drew the defender, slipped the pass to Jacob, who scored under the post, and Nick Newman converted. And then right after that, Nick himself helped himself to a try. The Bears just keeping the ball alive in the tackle on the halfway line, slipped it through to Kadeem Williams, who made a break, and he found Nick on his shoulder. And that was it. Bears were 12-6 ahead, and they never lost the lead from that point onwards. And in fact, they stretched it out. It was 28-6 by half-time, so Cam Pearce-Paul scored next, taking the ball off Kieran Sherratt, who hit the line at a really great angle, just running hard and fast, breaking through the Workington defence and finishing with ease. Then Nick Newman scored again. He intercepted the ball on the Bears try line, very nearly dropped it, very nearly fell over, regained his balance and ran the length of the pitch to score. Quite sensational. And then right on half time, when everyone was just thinking, play it safe here, just stick it up your jumper and take the tackle, no, Rhys Rance wasn't thinking that. He broke a couple of tackles and ran in from about 70 metres. So that was 28-6 at half time. We were expecting Workington to come out fighting, and they did. They scored a couple of tries early on in the second half, but the Bears were still out-muscling Workington, and they were certainly outpacing them. And they extended their lead further still with a great try from Elliot Hall. He caught the kick on the fifth tackle, dashed up to the 20-metre line to take the tap, and he went, and there were no defenders in front of him. And again, length of the field. And then to cap it off in terms of the tries, Jacob Jones scored another one. Workington sort of spilled the ball on the halfway line, and Jacob just picked the ball up, and he out-sprinted the Workington centre to race in from 50 metres. That took it to 40-18. And in between Workington's final 2 tries, which were consolation tries, if we're being fair, really. Nick Newman did add a drop goal to make that final score of 41-30. But the score probably makes it closer than it actually was in terms of the game. We'll get into our analysis of the match in just a second, but first let's hear from Bears head coach Tom Tsang. Oh, Tom, Bears 41, Workington 30. How does that sound?
Very good, although I don't think we should have conceded the 30 points.
You've been very hard on your players there.
No, yeah, very happy. We said to the boys inside after the game that obviously, apart from the Hunslet game, I think we've been ahead in every game that we've played. So, but we obviously haven't won every game. So today was just really, really pleasing to see that we were able to show a lot of character in that second half when Workington threw a lot at us, and we were able to keep our heads and then kick on again and score a couple of tries ourselves to sort of pull ourselves away again. So very happy, as you can expect, and I think the feeling in camp is that it's not really a surprise anymore, but this is now where we should be. This sort of result should be what we're aiming for every week, and it's not going to happen every week. We're realistic about that, but we need to be aiming for that at least.
Tell me a bit about the game plan for today, because obviously defensively it was very structured, very disciplined, and in attack it felt like there was a really good mix between structure and a bit of a freedom to play what was in front of the players. Is that a fair reflection? Did you give them that brief going into it?
Yeah, I mean, attacking wise, that's what we try and that's the philosophy that we have. We have a lot of set structure and plays depending on where we are on the field that we want the players to be able to fall into, but if there's an opportunity that arises itself in and amongst that framework, that they use it and they take that opportunity and they're not afraid to try that. Obviously there's some context to that depending on the flow of the game and whether we've just been defending for a long period of time, and that's also a sort of game understanding that they have. But they played at the right times, they kept it tight at the right times, and I think we've been talking about how negative the last sort of patch of schedule is without much game time and just a lot of training. But I think actually, to be fair, today there was a lot of stuff that we put out there on the field that was as a result of the things that we've been working on in training. So I'm very happy with, like you say, the way that they've been able to fall into structure very quickly, and the guys know the lines they should be running, and then when it becomes unstructured, to still be able to react to things and play off the back of it. So I was very happy with that.
And I guess anyone who's seen the Bears play this season probably wouldn't be surprised that you perhaps had the edge over Workington in terms of shipping the ball wide and using your pace, but the physicality that your team showed today was really impressive, because that's something you always hear about Cumbrian sides. They're big and physical. Like, how much have you been preparing for this one?
Yeah, a lot. Not necessarily for Workington as such, but just generally speaking, we know that we need to be able to match teams physically for exactly the reason you said. We back ourselves as being athletically one of the best teams in the league. We've got a very young, fit, fast team, lots of skill, but at times we've been undone because of the tough stuff through the middle. We haven't been able to match other teams, so we've done a lot of defensive work. A lot of that defensive work is around just your mindset and your attitude. The other side of it is the technical stuff. So if you put the two together, then you can do some really good stuff. And I thought our attitude was excellent today defensively for the most part. And obviously technically we're improving as well.
And the move to Broadstreet, which has been sort of forced upon the club and has gone very well so far. I mean, everyone I've spoken to here seems very impressed with the pitch in particular, and it seems almost like if a pitch could suit a team, this pitch seems to suit how your guys play. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think it is. It's absolutely maximum dimensions. It's as wide as you can go in terms of the league rules. It's full length. And yeah, we like to move the ball because, as I said, that physically we're a young team. We're not quite fully developed, a lot of the players. So we don't necessarily want to get into a bit of an arm wrestle through the central channel of the field. We want to test the opposition's sort of defensive structure and their willingness to defend across a big space by moving the ball around. So yeah, it really does suit us. And it's looking like it could be a blessing in disguise, been having that sort of put on upon us to move here. So very happy.
I don't want to pick out too many individuals because the team as a whole were terrific today. But I can't not ask you about the influence of Nick Newman today. I mean, he, particularly in the first half, he was just pulling the strings. Everything that was good about the Bears in the first half seemed to come through him. He's really found his feet now, hasn't he? Yeah,
and I think if you think to any rugby league team and extend that to any sports team, if you got like a playmaking position, such a crucial position, it's going to take time for that individual, if they're new to a team, to get their feet under the table and understand the way that I work as a coach and understand their new teammates and then put their own identity on with what the qualities that they bring. So yeah, it's taken. I mean, he hit the ground running at the start of the year, but he has definitely taken a step and improved, which we've seen in training. But today was just evidence of that, I think. And I think with him in that position, playing well, and there's still a lot of improvement for him as well, it gives confidence to the other players that are around him, that they've got someone there who can really know why they're telling them to do certain things, and they'll just go and do it. But yeah, there's a lot of other players that have played their part in this game as well. Yeah. And a couple of other newer faces in the side today. Tell me a bit about those two who came in. Lewis and Harvey. So Lewis Taylor is a young prop. He was actually a target of ours in the off season. We didn't manage to get him into the team, but he signed a contract with Sheffield Eagles in Championship. But he has found game time sort of limited. So we've taken him on a season-long loan. He's a young lad, 21 years old. Played for Hemel last year. Showed lots of potential. That's why we were interested in, because he fits the mould of the sort of players that we look for. And yeah, hopefully we can help develop him. I know his ambition really is to get back into the Sheffield first team, as he played one game so far. But if we can help develop him, and obviously at the same time he can assist us with what we're trying to do, then it's win for both sides. And then Harvey, again, he's another young lad. He's 21. Played for Keighley last year. Was one of their top performers in their front row. Got offered a championship contract with Dewsbury. Again, has found game time limited, but we were able to bring him in for this game, and I thought he was excellent for us off the back of just a couple of training sessions. So I'm very happy for him.
Yeah, and much needed, very strong beard game for the rest of the lads as well. Really doing a good job there. I guess to round off, obviously, for a change for this season, you're actually going into another game now. You're actually going into a bit of a run of games. So what could this do? Could this almost be like the Scholars away game last year? Could this set you up nicely for the next few weeks and months?
Well, I like to think so, but I think more than anything, even if we don't sort of consistently win games that we want to win, that we've got the belief now, after obviously today and Newcastle in the season and being in those other games on the scoreboard, that we've got the belief that we can match any team in this division, and there's a lot of good teams, good opposition, so we know that, like I said, we're not going to win every match, but we'll be doing our best to make it competitive, and I'm really confident that we'll be like Bears 41, Workington 36 isn't going to be a surprise by the end of the season.
Good stuff. Well, Tom, enjoy tonight, and I will speak to you again soon.
Thanks, mate.
So thanks to Tom, as always, for joining us and reflecting on a quite fantastic day for the Bears. So, Craig, you touched on it at the start of the show, but defensively, brilliant. In attack, scintillating. This was just... Is this the closest we've seen since we started doing this podcast to a complete Bears performance?
Absolutely. I think I'm not going to suggest Workington underestimated the Bears, but they certainly wouldn't have been expecting the Bears to really front up in such a big way defensively. As I said at the start of the show, this is a big Workington team. They play it down the middle, they tire teams out, and then they spread it. But actually the Bears went toe-to-toe with them and really put in a massive defensive performance, and that laid the platform. There was sets where Workington didn't even make it over the halfway line because Bears were right in their faces and really making it hard for them. Then when it switched to attack, Bears were lively. They were really going for it. Nick Newman in the middle was phenomenal. Both hookers as well. Mitch Shaw was fantastic today. Nathan Conroy was fantastic. When it didn't matter which one of those two were on the field, they both were, pulling the strings and making things happen. But yeah, Nick Newman had a fantastic game today, probably his best game in a Bears shirt, and really made things tick over. Also a big mention for Brad Sheridan, who has played a few times for the Bears now. He's not been a regular, but today he really didn't look out of place and put in a fantastic performance. Really worked well with Nick. And the thing is as well, when the ball was spread wide, there was so much invention from the Bears centres and second rows. Kieran Sherritt was fantastic. Reece Rance took his opportunity. Actually, the wingers didn't actually see too much of the ball, but when they did get it, they really made it pay.
I think what was really satisfying from a Bears point of view today was and it was orchestrated by Nick Newman, but they were playing heads-up rugby, weren't they? Yeah. They were sticking to their structures defensively, and they clearly had some game plan in mind for an attack, but they were looking and seeing what was happening on the pitch. And Nick in the first half was so adept at finding gaps and finding mismatches that he broke the line so many times, and then the Bears just flooded in, and we expected them to have more pace than Workington, and it proved, didn't it? The support play was fantastic. Everything was on point.
The wide pitch suited the Bears. They were able to spread it when they needed to, but the angles that people were running at made a huge difference. Jacob Jones had a brilliant game in second row as well, as did Kieran on the other side. Chris Barrett at 13 was just a giant defensively and in attack. Every time he took the ball up, he did not drop an inch. He basically made yards every time. The props were rotated throughout, and every single player put in a massive shift. They were big strong in the middle. The props, they put in a big performance, but also around the play of the ball, every single time there was people harrying and chasing Workington and not letting them settle. So it was just a fantastic performance. It's really good to see all of this hard work paying off. I think the guys were disappointed with the Scholars result. I know certainly when you look at that performance, the Bears could have played better and actually didn't play very well against Scholars and only had a narrow defeat. So, today I'm just over the moon that the guys have done it. This looks like a good home for the Bears in terms of the rugby that the Bears play. It's a wide pitch. There was a big in goal. The Bears used that and utilised that, and at times Workington looked dead on their feet. They just couldn't keep up with the pace of the Bears play. They did come back into it second half, Workington, which we expected them to do. They're a big team. They did grind the Bears down a little bit at times in the second half and managed to get over the line, but all in all, it was just a fantastic performance.
And I don't know about you, but I didn't really feel nervous at any point in the game.
No.
And the players looked like they were going to wrap that up, and they knew it was a big second half. Those first two tries in the second half coming from Workington, that might have made lesser teams crumble, but there's a real mental resilience now. I guess it's almost one of the few benefits of the fact that the Bears haven't played for a few weeks is that they were quite fresh going into this. They've had time to prepare fully for this, but this could really be the kickstart for the Bears season, couldn't it?
The Bears, despite the Workington rally at the start of the second half, the Bears were composed. I think we knew that Workington were probably going to score a couple early on in the second half. They probably got a rollicking at half time. They did come out firing, but the Bears were composed. They settled down after that initial 10-minute blast from Workington and took control of the game again. A couple of late tries from Workington. I guess Tom and the coaching team will be a bit disappointed with it. They got a couple of late tries, but all in all, the Bears were completely in control for the vast majority of the game. It was just one of those great performances from the Bears.
Well, we're going to take a very quick break, and after that we're going to be joined by a special guest. And if you've ever been to a Bears match in the last couple of seasons, his voice will be very familiar. We'll be right back. Okay, so just to wrap up the show, we are joined now by the voice of Bears home games and Super League Pod's very own Tim Griffiths. Tim, how did you enjoy that as a first match here at Broadstreet?
I definitely enjoyed it. The view I've got here at Broadstreet, it's like being on the conning tower on the top of a ship. It's brilliant. I'm sort of nice and sort of away from sort of a lot of the noise that you get at some grounds that I've done. I worked out today, this is my 10th ground that I've PA'd at, and it's got a really nice view over the field. It's beautiful. Field. I was actually down on the field earlier when we were trying to work out some camera positions, and it's really firm pitch, but you wouldn't think they'd had a full season on it, and you wouldn't think that Wasps are trained on it every week as well. And yeah, the first half was brilliant. I was really into it, but the second half was just where the nerves kicked in for me. Certainly where the first 2 tries came in from Workington, it just felt a little bit like, oh, have we been here before? Have we seen this happen? And then just gradually we kept it in the middle, really, I felt, is where we sort of got control of the game, and we managed to really stretch them and then tire them out, especially some of their bigger, older forwards. We really were struggling, and you could see it in the first half that they were starting to really tire. And then I think just the zip and inspiration we had from sort of 9 and from our half-backs really gave us that thing to get over. And I think it's just an all-round performance. I can't really fault anyone today, and I think it was just a brilliant all-round performance to watch.
And it feels like this, Bears have got a run of games now. We're finally in a chunk of the season where we're not playing 1 week and then having 2 weeks off. This could really be the spark that sort of lights a fuse on the rest of the season, couldn't it? It
could. I mean, it's going to be a nice little run of games all here at Broadstreet. So it's going to be, get into a bit of a habit, get back into playing week in, week out. I've been doing all sorts of things in the last few weeks to try and keep myself occupied.
Yeah.
And it's been bizarre. But I think, having those games here, knowing that we've got a rhythm, and I think it just helped the boys, because as a player, and I know from when I played, as soon as you fall out of the habit of playing week in, week out, you start to think, and you start to make excuses, other things come in, and you start to say, oh, well, I'm doing this week, and you sort of switch off a bit mentally and you don't prepare. And I think that's what it'll give the boys, is just some consistency, and now they'll have the self-belief. They've won here and won really well against a team featuring some internationals, ex-NRL players in Fui Moi Moi. Sean Penkovich, who played however many Super League games and played for Toronto Wolfpack just 2 seasons ago. So that's going to give them a lot of belief, and to have then 2 more games to back it up here in quick succession, I think it's going to be brilliant.
And the next game at Broadstreet is obviously the double header. So the Bears play, and then we've got the Women's Challenge Cup, Wigan against the Army afterwards. That's going to be a really exciting proposition, isn't it?
That's going to be brilliant. I went to the Super League Grand Final last year and watched the Wigan women win right at the death against Leeds Rhinos, and it was a bit of a controversial game, but it was a brilliant and a really good advert for Women's Rugby League, and I can't wait for it. See the Army as well. I've got a bit of an Army connection and sort of going back in my family, so I'm really looking forward to looking at that, and that's going to be a really good game to get up, and I think it's going to hopefully get a new fan base to us as well, and it's going to get some people who wouldn't come. I've already seen on Twitter a few people saying, oh, let's come down for that, so it's a good way to bring people in, and just for your average Bears fan, it's going to be double the fun, because we're going to have 2 games and they're going to be really high quality right off, one after the other, and you can't pick which one is going to be the better of the 2 games. They're both good, and after today and after their recent form, looking forward to the Bears playing Crusaders, who is going to be a real tussle, and the Bears have got to think now, they've got to believe that that's winnable.
Definitely. Craig, anything you want to add in terms of the next? Obviously, we've got Oldham as a trip first, but the next home game feels like a
double header, and the women's games after the Bears. So in effect, the Bears game is the lead up game, and the main match is the Women's Challenge Cup game. So that's going to be a fantastic day. Let's hope the weather's a little bit better than it was today. Nice sunny day, and lots of people here. It's going to be fantastic.
Great. Tim, thank you so much for joining us and sort of pausing your packing down to join us on the pod. Before you go, a bit of plug for the podcast you're involved with, a bit of a plug for Super League Pod.
Yeah, so Super League Pod, at Super League Pod on Twitter and various other social media. And it's a fans podcast for all fans of any team. Get your match reviews in, get your game reviews in. That's one of the things that we thrive on the podcast, is having people's match reviews come in and having that interaction with the fans, and it also extends to news stories. So any news stories you see about rugby league during the week, we've got a Google form, you just pop it in, it takes 10 seconds and we read it out on the show, and we read out everything, and that's part of the point. It's a nice community of fans, of like-minded people, and it's just, and the idea being that if there's a game people aren't covering, we'll cover it. Just drop us a review. So it extends right from amateur games, women's games, wheelchair games. We've covered everything, and it's just formed a nice little community of listeners as well. So it's been really nice. I've been to a few games where we've met up with other listeners, and got one coming up in a couple of weeks down at London Scholars. In fact, next week, where we've got the international Norway against Greece World Cup qualifier, so that's going to be one for the RL hipster bucket list.
Definitely.
And it's going to be brilliant. And yeah, just touching back on the women's game, I suppose it just come to me that that's actually going to be bank holiday, so with no excuse for that one that you've got to rush off for work. It's bank holiday the next day.
Absolutely, you've sold it perfectly. Well, Tim, thank you for your time for joining us, and Craig, I guess final word to you. We've beaten a Cumbrian team at last. Monkey off the back.
And we're actually making a habit of beating established northern teams.
Yeah.
I remember when we first started this podcast, the Bears had actually not beaten a established northern team. I think we'd beaten Crusaders, but that was it really. And we went into these types of games with an expectation that the Bears would put up a good fight, but probably wouldn't win. We're going into these games now knowing that the Bears have the ability on the pitch to win it, and it's just fantastic. Great to be a Bears fan at the moment, and let's hope they can push on from this. And this league is really competitive. Everyone seems to be beating each other. There's absolutely no reason why the Bears can't go on a bit of a charge and push up into the top 6 now.
Yeah, let's hope that happens. Well, we'll leave it there for this week. We, of course, live at covbearspodcast.com. We're at covbearspodcast on Twitter. Subscribe wherever you get your podcast, whether that's Apple, Spotify, YouTube, wherever. Tell a friend about it, and definitely tell a friend now, because the Bears are on the rise and they're on the loose as well. Join us back at Broadstreet in a couple of weeks, and join us on the podcast next week for another episode. But yeah, Craig, Tim, thank you. See you next time.